Why most biohacking is questioning your health and business and what to do instead. Now, you're wasting time trying to biohack your way to real energy and laser sharp focus. If you think red light therapy and cold plunges are going to give you superhuman energy, let's be real here for a second. There's not a chance. But it's not because they don't do anything. It's because you're more broken than you initially thought. I mean, think of it this way. Because you've been at this for years, you spent a lot of money, and yet you're still waking up exhausted with a fried brain, still running on coffee and stimulants just to function, still carrying around that anxiety that always just seems to be there. And the real reason nothing has worked is not because you haven't found the right thing to add yet. This belief that the answer to all your problems has to be the next protocol or the next supplement stack or this cool new shiny object or tool is the exact thing that's keeping you stuck. And so here's how I've been able to supercharge my energy 12 hours a day to stay razor sharp as a business owner using what I call the rapid reset protocol. So I want to walk you through a timeline, but first I'm going to keep it short, because you probably went to the doctor, you described your symptoms, fatigue that won't go away or whatever else that may be, or what you were going through. They run all the standard tests, and then they come back, boom, everything is fine, leaving you with a prescription and a sense of dread that they don't even know what's wrong with you. And now that conventional medicine has found you, you sort out your own solutions. You went research heavier and started to learn all about the usual supplements and tools biohackers cream over: CBD oils, ashwagandha, cold plunges. The list of stuff goes on and on. And you yourself have your own custom stack. Now, you kept adding to it every time you read something compelling that could help your situation. And that is the problem. The entire framework you've been operating from, the framework that the entire supplement and biohacking industry is built on, is this: if you're not well, find the right thing to add. And that framework is wrong. Not because individual things are useless, some of them have genuinely solid science behind them, but because you cannot add your way to health in a body that isn't capable of using what you're giving it. You can pour the highest quality water in the world into a blocked pipe, but it goes nowhere. Not because the water's bad, but because the pipe is blocked, and your body is the blocked pipe. So adding all these biohacks is the exact reason you're stuck dealing with energy problems. You see how this changes everything now? But before I go deep on the strategy, I need to tell you why this is super important first. For someone who faced complete health collapse 16 years ago, I have to tell you what the future will look like if you don't start taking your fatigue problem very seriously. Because the natural response when you've tried everything and nothing's worked is to keep trying, which is fair enough. But what's actually happening underneath is compounding damage. Right now, you're managing with coffee and stimulants, but these are losing their effectiveness. And if you keep trying to patch yourself up with these and not address the root cause, then you're heading for a complete burnout event. Not a bad week, a complete collapse. And I know from personal experience what this is because I went through one. Your business doesn't just stop growing, it flies off a cliff because its top man can't even function. Bills and debts start to build up, leaving you no choice but to give up. Relationships will suffer and begin to fall apart because you can't even be there for yourself. And the amount of times I've talked to men who've had panic attacks triggered by sitting in an Uber, by a work deadline, by things that have no business producing that kind of physiological response, that's what years of undressed nervous system dysregulation does. I talk to men who have built genuinely impressive businesses, who have the lifestyle, the financial success, the family, and they describe their life as something they're watching from behind the glass, stuck in their head, and they can't really feel anymore, unable to be present with their loved ones. And that's not a biohacking problem. That's what happens after years of having a dysregulated nervous system, an inflamed gut, an overburdened liver. That's what they do to a human being when the root cause is never addressed. And then the additional loop, the constant cycling through new supplements, new protocols, new stacks, gives you just enough relief to keep you in it. Spending more money, burning more time, while the underlying fire keeps burning. And so now you know what the future will hold if you don't take action. You know exactly why you must act now to get your energy back. So right now, the belief is, I haven't found the right thing to add yet. It's the operating principle you've been running on. And every time something didn't work, the conclusion was, wrong tool. So you found a different tool and added that too. The correct operating principle is the opposite. You don't add before you remove. You never add before you remove. Your body heals in a sequence. That sequence is non-negotiable. It's not a philosophical preference, it's physiology. Get the sequence wrong and you waste everything you put in. Get it right and the results compound in ways that feel almost impossible compared to what you've experienced before. So I want to walk you through the sequence, and I want to actually explain each step, not just name it, because once you understand why the order matters, you'll never look at your health in the same way again. So step one is the nervous system reset, and everything starts here, not the gut, not the liver, the nervous system. And so here's why this is non-negotiable, because your nervous system has two modes, repair mode and survival mode. And your body is designed to move between these two states fluidly. And when a perceived threat arises, survival mode activates. And when threat passes, the repair mode takes back over and the healing and repair can begin again. But here's what chronic stress and chronic stimulant use, poor sleep, and years of relentless output have done to most of the high performers I work with. They've locked the nervous system in survival mode overdrive, and it's treating every day like a threat to be survived. And a body in survival mode does not prioritize healing. It can't afford to. Healing is a luxury reserved for when threat has passed. This means every healing protocol you run on a nervous system that's stuck in survival mode is running on a compromised system. The gut cannot repair itself properly, the liver cannot detoxify efficiently, nutrients can't be absorbed correctly, hormonal regulation is disrupted, your mitochondria can't produce energy properly. These biohacks have virtually no effect. Nothing works at full capacity because the body's primary directive is to keep you alive, not to heal you. This is why the most disciplined, most informed, most invested people I encounter are still sick. But resetting your nervous system changes that. And here's exactly how you're going to get your energy back and actually heal your body fast. So the good news is you can switch back into healing mode within a matter of days just by utilizing a couple of techniques daily that take no time at all. A specific breath work, the kind that directly activates the parasympathetic nervous system, signaling safety to the body at a physiological level, removing inflammatory inputs that are keeping the system wired, somatic practices that communicate to the body through the nervous system itself that it's safe to come out of survival mode. Now, this isn't soft work, it's a biological prerequisite for every single thing that follows. Without this, nothing else functions properly. You could do every other step perfectly and still not get the results you're after. And running alongside the CNS reset from day one is Epitalon. Now, Epitalon is a peptide, but I'm going to tell you why we use this. Now, your pineal gland is the master regulator of your circadian rhythm, and it sits around here. And in almost every chronically stressed, overstimulated high performer is operating in a severely compromised state, calcified, producing inadequate melatonin, unable to properly anchor the sleep-wake cycle. Now, essentially, what all this means is that your sleep is fucked, mate. But with Epitalon, it can be unfucked. Now, Epitalon works directly on the pineal gland. It reduces calcification, it restores proper melatonin production, and re-anchors the circadian rhythm that governs every repair process in your body. So you can actually sleep on time for adequate periods and sleep deeply. Now, every hour of deep, properly structured sleep is when cellular repair happens. And Epitalon fixes the clock so those repair processes actually run. It's not sedating you, it's restoring the biological machinery that makes proper sleep possible. And then we've got gut healing. This is step 2. Once the nervous system is beginning to calm, this comes second. So I want to explain what is actually happening there, okay? Because this is where most of the problems you're experiencing have their root. The gut lining is a single layer thick, it's one cell. That's all that separates your bloodstream from the contents of your digestive tract. And when the gut is functioning properly, that barrier is tight, okay? So nutrients pass through, waste stays out. So nutrients can go through, but the waste stays out. That means undigested food particles stay out. But in a chronically stressed, inflamed system, that barrier becomes permeable, meaning undigested food particles and bacteria and toxins that should stay in the gut, they start seeping through directly into the bloodstream, okay? So your immune system, which lines the entire gut, has a massive reaction and drives inflammation throughout the body. Now, it crosses the blood-brain barrier and drives neuroinflammation, which is inflammation into your brain, which is a primary driver of brain fog, anxiety, and mood instability that you've probably been trying to solve with nootropics and adaptogens. This is also why your expensive supplements aren't working the way they should. If the gut lining is inflamed and compromised, absorption is poor, so you're paying for supplements that are largely going to waste because the system meant to absorb them is damaged. And a proper gut healing protocol gives the gut a complete rest. It removes every food that drives an immune response, processed food, refined sugar, dairy, gluten, inflammatory oils, artificial additives. It removes the inputs that are keeping the gut in a reactive state and gives the gut lining, the conditions that it needs to start repairing. And running alongside this from day one is BPC 157. Now, BPC 157 body protection compound, is one of the most extensively researched gut healing peptides available. It directly accelerates the repair of the gut lining. It calms inflammatory reactions that are keeping the gut in a reactive state. And there's something else BPC 157 does. It upregulates a pathway called NRF2, the master genetic switch for your entire antioxidant response. So it's not just healing the gut, it's amplifying your body's own antioxidant production at the same time. So when BPC 157 runs alongside a gut healing protocol, the healing that would normally take months starts happening immediately, and the protocol clears the inputs driving damage. The peptide accelerates repair inside the cell outward. Both things are done at once. Then we've got step 3, the colon cleanse. And this one surprises people because most people in the biohacking world skip straight to liver detoxification without ever thinking about the colon. And that is a significant mistake with a specific biological reason behind it. So here's what you need to understand. Now, the vast majority of people are walking around with years of compacted waste, undigested matter, and what's called mucoid plaque built up along the colon wall. Now, the Western lifestyle, chronic stress, poor food combinations, processed food, minimal hydration, antibiotics, medication, it creates a digestive system that's severely compromised in its ability to fully clear what passes through it. And over years, that buildup accumulates. And when that waste sits in the colon, it doesn't sit passively. The toxins in it, seep through the gut lining and get reabsorbed into the bloodstream. Now, your body is then spending enormous amounts of energy trying to clear those same toxins over and over again, an exhausting cycle that never ends because the source is never removed. But there's a specific reason this has to come before liver cleansing, and this is the thing most people don't know. Now, when you start mobilizing toxins from the liver, which is a step that follows, those toxins need a clear exit route. They move from the liver into the bile, and from the bile into the intestines and out through the colon. If the colon is congested, those toxins don't exit cleanly. They get reabsorbed back into the bloodstream. This is called retoxification, and it's one of the primary reasons people feel dramatically worse when they attempt liver detoxification without doing this step first. They're just recycling the very toxins they're trying to release. A colon cleanse creates that clear exit pathway. It uses specific binding agents such as activated charcoal, zeolite, bentonite paste, psyllium husks, other substances as well that act like negatively charged magnets in the gut, binding to positively charged toxins, heavy metals, pesticides residue, plastics, and accumulated waste, and moving them out of the body. It doesn't suppress them, it doesn't mask them, it moves them out. So when people complete this properly for the first time, what comes out often shocks them. They're like, oh my, I cannot believe what's come out of me. Dark, toxic material that's been sitting in their body for years. And within a few days, people who have struggled with digestive issues, low mood, energy, zero energy, poor focus, they start noticing shifts because for the first time in years, the body has a clean exit route for the load it's been carrying. Then we move on to step 4, which is the liver cleanse. Now, with a regulated nervous system, a healing gut, and a clear colon, you can safely and effectively work on the liver. And this is where transformation typically becomes undeniable. So I want to give you some context on what the liver actually does, because I don't think most people fully appreciate what it does. Now, the liver is our battery of life, and it's also the master filter of the body. It processes everything that enters your bloodstream, every toxin, every environmental chemical, every hormone, every medication, every metabolic waste product. It regulates blood sugar, it stores vitamins and minerals, it produces bile for digestion, and it performs hundreds of vital functions your body cannot live without. And so here's the sobering reality. Most people are operating with their liver functioning at somewhere between 10 and 20% of its optimal capacity. Not because of serious disease, but because of the cumulative load, decades of processed foods, alcohol, environmental toxins, medications, antibiotics, stress hormones. The liver has been so consistently overburdened for so long that it's running in emergency mode. And here is what that means for you specifically. Every single thing you've been trying to fix, the fatigue, the brain fog, the hormonal issues, the mood instability, the chronic inflammation, has the liver right at the center of it. Because when the liver is overburdened, hormone clearance is impaired. Cortisol, estrogen, insulin, they're not being processed and cleared efficiently, which means they're circulating at levels they shouldn't be. And the inflammatory compounds that should be neutralized are remaining in circulation. Blood sugar regulation is compromised. And a liver cleanse uses specific compounds like tucker, milk thistle, rowet minerals, targeted juicing protocols to support the liver's two-phase detoxification process. Now, phase 1 breaks down toxins into intermediate compounds, and phase 2 it binds those compounds to the carrier molecules so they can be excreted. Now, both phases need to be supported in the right order with the right inputs, and binders are strategically used throughout to capture what's being released and to ensure it exits cleanly rather than recirculating. And running alongside the liver cleanse is glutathione. Now, glutathione is a master antioxidant, okay? The molecule your liver uses as a foundation of its entire detoxification process. Every toxin your liver processes in phase 2 detox goes through something called glutathione conjugation. Glutathione grabs the toxin and makes it water soluble so it can be excreted. Now, without adequate glutathione, that process cannot run efficiently. And most chronically stressed, high output people are severely depleted in glutathione. Chronic stress depletes it. One UC San Diego study found sustained psychological stress depleted glutathione by over 40% in the prefrontal cortex alone. Poor sleep depletes it, inflammatory food depletes it, and when it's depleted, the liver's ability to detoxify, even with all the right protocols in place, is severely limited. Restoring glutathione in the right bioavailable form alongside the liver cleanse gives the liver the fuel it needs to actually complete the detoxification protocol it is initiating. The protocol mobilizes and glutathione clears, and together the liver starts to function at a level it hasn't in years. Now, the peptide stack running through all 4 steps. I'm going to explain this to you because I want to put the full picture together. Because the peptide stack isn't a separate phase that comes after the holistic work. It runs alongside every step from day one. That's what makes this category different from anything else out there. Now, I've already introduced 3 of them. Epitalon working alongside the CNS reset, BPC 157 working along the gut healing part of the protocol, and then glutathione working alongside the liver cleanse. But there are 3 more running through all 4 phases simultaneously. Now, we've got NAD+, which is your cellular energy currency. Now, every repair process your body runs requires ATP. The mitochondria generate ATP, but in a chronically stressed, overtaxed system, mitochondrial function is significantly compromised. And NAD+ restores the fuel supply at the cellular level. Think of it this way: the protocols are giving the repair crew the right conditions to work, and NAD+ is making sure the lights are on and the power is running so they can actually do the job. Without it, even the best protocols can't complete the repair cycle. Then we've got TB500, which helps with structural tissue repair, and it works on a protein called actin, fundamental to cellular structure and movement. It accelerates repair of connective tissues, organs, and the structural damage that accumulates from years of chronic inflammation. Wherever the body has been taking damage, and after years of chronic stress and systemic inflammation, there's structural damage throughout, TB500 is accelerating the repair. Then we've got GHK-Cu. Now, this one deserves real attention because it's one of the most underestimated peptides. Now, GHK-Cu is a copper peptide that modulates the expression of over 4,000 genes. Not supplements, not nutrients, genes. It's not adding anything artificial. It's turning the cellular program back towards the expression profile it had when you were younger. So genes involved in repair, they're turned up. Genes involved in inflammation are turned down. So the body's regenerative machinery, which has been progressively suppressed by years of chronic stress and aging, starts running again at a level it hasn't in years. Together, Epitalon, BPC 157, glutathione, NAD+, TB500, GHK-Cu, these are not a supplement stack, they are a biological instruction set, running alongside a holistic protocol that has cleared the system of everything that was blocking their effect. That's the combination that produces results at a speed that genuinely surprises people who've been stuck for years. A healing timeline that would take 6 to 12 months gets compressed, not because we're forcing anything, but because we've removed the obstacles and given the body the tools it already knows how to use. So let me tell you what's on the other side of this. I'm going to use the language that my clients actually use because it's more accurate than anything I could construct. So, the mornings change first. You wake up and there's no hum of dread waiting for you. No weight on your chest before the day begins. You wake and you actually wake, before the coffee. And you're not bracing yourself for the day, and you're just in it. The energy, that you get, the real kind of energy, not a stimulant, spiked, crash incoming kind you've been managing with for years. Steady, consistent energy from morning to night without relying on anything to manufacture it. People describe wanting the energy they had when they were 16 years old, wanting to feel their senses come back, wanting to wake up and feel alive, alert, clear, and lucid. That's not a fantasy. That's what becomes possible when the systems that generate energy are actually functioning. That clarity arrives. The brain fog, the thing you've been trying to solve with nootropics and cold plunges and every supplement you cycle through, that lifts. And what comes back underneath is a quality of thinking you haven't accessed in years. The ability to work on genuinely hard problems without the mental static, to operate with that eagle-eye viewpoint rather than being stuck in the weeds of a mental chatter, and to make sharper, faster business decisions from a place of genuine clarity rather than pushing through fog. And then the anxiety, that also goes quiet. Not quieter, not managed, quiet. People describe wanting their anxiety to be literally zero, to feel light and free, with not a care in the world, to not even remember the last time they had an anxious thought. That sounds extreme until you understand that anxiety driven by nervous system dysregulation, gut inflammation, and the liver struggling to clear cortisol is not a psychological problem, it's a physiological one. It's a physiological problem. And when you address it at the root, the resolution isn't management, it actually gets resolved. It's complete resolution. And to change your business changes not because you're grinding harder, but because you're operating from a completely different physiological state. You hit record months not by working more hours, but by operating from a state of restored vitality. The quality of your decisions improves, the speed improves, you stop fighting your body to do the work, and your output reflects it. And then there's a thing that's hardest to put a number on, but that every single person I've worked with eventually mentioned. You come back. The numbness, that goes. The sense of watching your life from the outside, that dissolves. You're actually present with the people who matter to you in a way that doesn't require effort or a reminder. And you feel things properly again. You land back in your body. One client said to me, Ryan, I finally feel like myself again. I finally landed back in my body. He'd been running a successful company for 15 years and couldn't remember the last time he felt that. That's what root cause healing at the speed this audience demands actually produces. Not symptom management, not a better morning routine, a genuinely different experience of being alive. And here's what I want you to walk away with, stating as plainly as I can. Your body heals in a sequence. At first, the nervous system, then the gut, the colon's third, and then the liver fourth, with peptides accelerating every phase from day one. And that's the thing that changes everything. So the next time someone puts a supplement in front of you, a new biohack, a new peptide protocol, a new stack, before you reach for your card, ask yourself one question. Have I cleaned my system first? Because if the answer is no, if the nervous system is still in survival mode, if the gut is still inflamed and permeable, if the colon hasn't been cleared, if the liver is still running at 10 or 20%, you already know what happens. You've lived it more times than you should have had to. And one more thing I want to be direct about. What I've described today is not a DIY protocol. The sequencing matters. The peptide stack has to be calibrated to what you're actually dealing with. Running this without proper guidance, the way most people approach peptides, just from a thread on mine, generic threads, doesn't get you results. It can make things worse because you're adding compounds to a system that isn't ready to use them, which is, ironically, the exact same mistake the addition loop makes. The people I work with get results because every element is sequenced correctly. The peptide stack is matched to their specific situation, and the holistic work is running in the right order, given the right support throughout. In the next video, I'm going to go deep on each peptide in the stack, what it does at a biological level, why each one sits where it does in the sequence, and the critical difference between using peptides as the accelerant in a clear system versus throwing them at a body that's still blocked. That's where the science gets genuinely fascinating. And so, if what I've covered today is the first thing that's actually made sense to you, the reason for why you've been stuck, then like the video and subscribe, because what comes next goes significantly deeper.